Well, hello again and welcome back to Pete's Model Car Customs. I'm just up here with another update on the Ford Falcon Thunder Cow Drag Customs set and the Mustang II Firefighter, and a bit of an update of what I've done to detail these. As a lot of you know, I've been pretty ill recently, so I've not been doing a lot, and I've got to cut down on the amount of sanding and stuff I'm doing at the moment. So I'm not doing big projects. I'm trying to spend my time building stuff really, and just the odd bit of whatever anyway. So most of this is about different adaptations I've done on these two cars. Let's start with the easy one. Well, what is the easy one? I've got an axle here. The other day, this is the Falcon rear axle. And the other day I showed these parts loose. The brake caliper mounts and caliper carrier, I think. Brake caliper mounts disc. And that moulded into there. But I've got a lot more onto there. Let's grab a box. Hang on. Using a relevant box. Aha! How about that? If I sit that like that, I've put... Take this all apart again. Alright, does that help? That's not too bad, is it? So, the Falcon came with solid plastic wheels, which I've exterminated a little bit to flatten. So I've put them together, put the wheel in the centre, and then heated them up and gone onto the ground, give me a flat spot in there, which I then built up with more sheet and a bit of filler around there, and I just try to get the edge around there. I might cut that a little bit more, and to give them a flattened off patch on the tyres, I'm scurfing them up, get a bit of texture around, get rid of the seam, and then paint them up, and they're fine. On the this is the little caliper dude, and if I can just, I know I'm well out of, right, I'm in the picture. Dog don't like me videoing again. God on an ass. These are a bit tight in. If I pop that back on, this is the other one, right? I've got that. The ring on that disc will sit on the ring of that hub there. As you can notice, I've taken the metal axle out and put in a pin, a plastic pin, right? And that will act as the disc and caliper carrier. Right, but I've just got to sand the top of the caliper a little bit to get it to fully go in. I'll put it back on the axle. Right, wrong way round. Right, so there we'll have the disc, the caliper, and a carrier. And the carrier will fit on the end of the axle. Where'd I put that wheel? Right, so then the stub of the axle fits back in, and the disc will move down into the... Get out of the way. Like that. And you, dog. So I've just got to take that little bit off there to allow that to slip in. Get the caliper inside the wheel a bit more. On the rest of this, should have dry brushed it, shouldn't I? I've added new plates to the bottom. New spring plates with nut detail, and then made the plate so as it incorporated the shock absorber mount, which has got a nut and bolt on it, and made new shocks as well. So I've made new shocks, new shackles going over the axle, and then new axle plates and bolts, because the detail on this axle was, to say basic is to say basic, isn't it? I mean, these kits. So that lot will all jumble together and replace the original, or detail the original parts. I've got to look for that other caliper. Oh, that is good. I won't have to tread on it to find it. Ow, it's a long way down. I'm on quite a high cliff. Oh, my head. Right, that's that one back. On the actual chassis, it's, well, boulder dash. On the actual chassis itself, I've done quite a bit of detailing in the same way. This is using quite a bit of sprue goo. I was talking to Mad Dog Merv yesterday. He was on about sprue goo, so I said I'd show mine too. But I do use quite a bit of it to build things up and to fill or to detail. Let's move that box out of the way. On the Falcon's actual body, like I said on the last video, I have, if I can get that out, cleared that one out. So you've got a see-through grille there. But on the inside, it had the old-fashioned pillar plates, you know, and there's bugger all in the front there, you know, it had those stupid pin locators. So I've taken all that out and put in a new rad support bracket there. I've also put in a new, there isn't a front valance behind the bumper, and where I've cut the grille free from the bumper, I've had to make up a new front valance because I'm dumping the bumper, and the same round the back. I've added a new valance into there. That's a basic body done. It is on this primer. I couldn't remember what it was called. This is Vallejo acrylic polyurethane surface primer. Hold the bottle up better. That one. It's a very white, light grey. I mean, this Galaxy is in that primer too, and it's a very white grey. But when you compare it to white, it is grey. And that's whiter. But it is a very light grey. And it's quite a nice, easy sprayable, easily dilutable paint. So that's fine. Where's that come on? That's the Galaxy one. Back down here on the Falcon, I've made a new floor. And like I said, I've gone, this is the roll cage from it, so I've made sprue goo welds all the way around the roll cage joints. I mean, I found with a lot of these that they're so poorly moulded. Doing your joints with sprue goo also covers up any sort of gaps, and you know, you've got a pin that doesn't quite go in a hole and a gap round it, or it's just all misshaped. And the same with the around the front of the chassis. It was just a bit basic, so I've gone round and added weld details, and at the rear end where the springs hang, I've added nut detail to the spring hangers as well. There's a bit more detail scribing in. If you see under there, I've scribed and put a lip in as well. I scribed it first, then put in some script to just build up a bit of substance around where they're meant to be fitting along there as well, onto the bottom frame. I can't remember why I've made a new floor. I know that sounds silly, but I have made a new floor. I can't remember where that tunnel comes from. The firewall comes from a what are they called, NASCAR cars, you know, a Thunderbird. But I thought it was a better looking firewall. And we're there like that and that with that, and the wheels and axles where I've safely put those. Move it out of the way for a minute. back on the bench, good. On the Mustang II, I've cleaned up the seams on this. This was the Pro Stock, whatever. This is the intake scoop off of one of the Chevrolets, either a Nova or a Chevelle, I can't remember which. So I've given that a bit of a clean up and adapted it to fit on there. I saw a really nice one, and all part of this actually led me to a different thing in my research, because this is quite basic as well. The underside here, I've just got some amended parts, if I can find them. Let's move that again. This is a very basic kit. It's got exciting box art, you know, all the sort of... I'll lift the centre out a minute. Might do with it upside down. Exciting picture on the side there of a cut through. I know it's upside down. I can't get the middle inner box out. But the contents of it are somewhat Spartan once you get into it. Where was it? The rear suspension in that panel is those two spring-like things, and then we got some ladder bars. Not panhard. Is it a panhard rod? But no anti-sway sort of bars. Just these sort of ladder bars, and then the wheelie bars onto these spring-like blobs of plastic. I'll investigate them a bit. At the front, you've got this part here to make your front section. Now you can see from this that I've adapted it, and what I've basically done was there's a bridging piece that holds that spring that's not very well moulded onto the actual stub. So I cut that free there, took the dimensions of the spring and made new springs. And with the way this is, you could make, well, I will pose the steering. You could actually make it quite easily movable, you know, once you've cut these bits free. So in my little box of treasures down there, that's the back bumper insert. I'm still sanding this to get it to fit. This one, if it was left chrome, there's no way you'd get it in that slot. I've sanded and sanded and sanded to get this to go into that slot. It's quite a chore. Anyway, where's the original part? I've got the flanges on the exhaust. Forgot about that. That's the original part there. So you can cut that spring off, and you've got a free moving stub where it's got these two pins at the top locating into the rest of the suspension parts. So that's what I've done. That's given me this part loose, which I've actually left myself a little bit of a stub there. If I just go out of focus, that's focus. Those little bits there I want to keep, because I'll put on some actuating arms, so that's a little bit of the stub bracket that held the spring on left, and I've reshaped it a bit. But I want to interlink my two front wheels, so having those stubs there will just help me brace up the other part. There's a couple of little springs I've made to replace it, and also a couple of slices of just what do you call tube? Evergreen tube, to just adjust anything. And these parts will get, if I get clamped. How did it go? Oh yeah, up against that. The chamfer there goes up against the frame and locks in, aligning your doodad there. and that part I just showed you fits into there. Now I did notice that this is off center. If I can just bring that back up, with in the standard position like that. But if you do that, once you cut the spring off, you've just dropped this by a couple of inches. The front end will lower by a couple of inches, scale inches, not real ones. You know, so that's a bonus. I can put them in upside down now and drop the front end a little bit. I can't. Shaking like a leaf on a tree. So that will give me the axle higher than it should be and lower the front end. So I'll be doing that. I'll put in drill through the bottom. You can just see there's a dimple for that spring. Would have been just dimpled in there. There's no right. So if I drill through the centre of there, I can put a pin in it through there, and the same in the top, and that will house my two springs and stop them popping out. Just you know, just drill through, put a stub of like 1mm evergreen through it, and it will give a bit more detail to the underside part, which will then look at least as though it's got a nut. I mean, there is no suspension going on here. It's all totally wrong for the real one, for the real car, and very basic. What else was there? Those exhausts there. I've put them together on the sprue and then put a flange across them there. And I was looking in my research for Mustang IIs. I bumped into Gap and Roche, I don't know. And their cars were quite a lot of information. And that was quite helpful to look at what these cars actually look like. There's several other videos on about them. There's also just different parts in here, you know. Different bump, what was it? Different exhaust, some odds and sods. I had to strip off the chrome, it's horrendous, and I've still got to give it another dip. It was sort of like flaking, and then where it wasn't, I dipped it in bleach and stuff to try and get it off. But where it's held really fast, and where it wasn't, it just flaked off. It was bloody annoying. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, right. Pop this apart. Like I showed on the Falcon, I've started messing around with this. I did say about the floor having, I don't know whether these will show up, but down there there's rivet detail and around, but there was absolutely massive ejector marks on this floor, and it just ruined all the detail. The inner door panels, this is basically, I've painted over it to try and give a highlight to what was there. This hasn't been sanded down. This is it. The relief on this stuff is seriously low, and if you wanted to convert this to a proper car, you'd have to make up some new levers and that. It also has, as I said in the last video, a rather horrendous roll cage, which I've been trying to improve a bit, and it's ended up with a lot of sprue goo holding it together, some added gusset plates. I put a brace in there, I just spar that across and stabilise those two, and then gone around it with a load of this is card that I got in a hobby shop, and I cut it into strips and then soaked it down in a PVA and black paint mix and held it on by, I don't know whether you can see these because they're covered in paint too, but I flattened some aluminium rod, gardening wire, you know, that sort of level of aluminium, and made sort of clamps to go around and hold this in place. And because it was aluminium, and I was able to pinch it, you know, and get some shape into this, but I've got a lot of cleaning up with this. I know it looks a mess at the moment. I've raised it up on a couple of pedestals because it was far too down in the body, and I've now found I've got to take about a mil off, maybe, like down to that. Drop it back down a little bit to snuggle it in with the glass, but it was so far down the windscreen, it was just ridiculous. But I haven't even looked at the actual glass yet. But bit of jiggery pokery, and I've got that to sit up nearer the roof. Get in there again. It was in a minute ago. Without having... Is that it? No, a bit further over. It's got so much misalignment. There's a lot of twist towards the back here. So let's get that around, flared out there. Right, that's it back in. And I've just got you can see there, I've got a little bit of a step. So I've got to drop those centre pedestals back a bit. And then the same with the back one, and then just elevate the front. But it will be in there a lot neater. I've now brought it up so high there's no window room, so I've just got to drop it a little bit more. But it will be a much better fit than it was originally. I bet I've babbled on for long enough. Sprue goo. Hang on a second. My sprue goo. This is blimmin' thick at the moment. But I was hearing other people saying they're using extra thin Tamiya cement to make this. Well, that is the expensive way of doing it. I don't. In fact, I no longer buy any liquid adhesive at all. I'll go on that way around. I make a mixture of that and that 50-50 into a jar, and it will act as an adhesive, or by adding sanded down bits. I keep all my sanding dust, and I had in the past as well, apart from what I'd swallowed. Mix it in 50-50 with your sanding dust and little offcuts to make yourself some sprue goo, adhere it all together. I'm not sure, but I think this is what Americans call lacquer thinner. It does contain xylene, but I've been buying it as cellulose thinner for the last 40 odd years, and didn't know until recently that you could dilute it with cheap nail, whatever cheap nail varnish you can get. This is called acetone, really, and the mixture of the two will dissolve plastic. This is actually says it's an extra strong, but it isn't particularly. Extra strength acetone. I mean, how could... But anyway, they all seem to be about the same, and I mix them 50-50 to get my end result. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining me. Hope you're all well, and best wishes from jolly old England.